YouTubers, Electric Adventures with my channel update for March 2015. Bit of a quiet month for me as far as YouTube goes. A little bit behind on videos and things like that. Basically, yeah, we've had a couple of issues with kids and things like that. So, suffice to say, the last particular incident was our littlest one fell over and broke her arm. But there have been other issues as well, so got me a little bit behind. But I do actually have some pickups. I was at our local electronics boutique, which I suppose is the same as GameStop, are owned by the same people, I believe. And they had a whole lot of pre-owned Vita games in. And this month they had a special for club members. I mean, pretty much everybody's a club member, where you buy 2 and get 1 free. So I made a selection. There were actually more there, but I didn't want to spend any more money. So these were my 3 main picks. Without going too much expensive, there was another like buggy racing game that I wouldn't have minded, but it was still a bit expensive for being second-hand. All these are in great condition. So I got the Ratchet and Clank trilogy. Now I haven't actually played any of these games on the PS2, so it'll be great playing those on the Vita. I'm sure I'll quite enjoy those because I like those type of games. I'm not going to open them up. They're all good inside. Some of them have still got codes. They may or may not work. Now I know I have actually bought this recently for the PS3, but I thought it wouldn't hurt having the Vita game because I've started playing the PS3 game and once again got interrupted, so I may actually have a chance to play through it properly with the Vita version. And it was pretty cheap, and I was actually quite enjoying it, so looking forward to playing that one. So Borderlands 2, and I know nothing about this game. I'm not sure how much of an online portion you need to play it. Soul Sacrifice, but it indicates, you know, it's embark on an epic adventure to free yourself from a powerful sorcerer. So, you know, it's probably a hack and slash adventure type game, I suppose. I'm assuming lots of battles and things like that. I'll see how I go. I haven't played a lot of games of that type. But it might be a good one to see how I go. So that was sort of like the free game, so because that was the cheapest of them all. And the next thing isn't a game, it's actually a book. Now a couple of other people have showed they've got this, and I really am glad that I went ahead and bought this. I got it from Amazon. It came over, didn't take too long, and it's the Konami Shooters book. This book is really good. It's not very expensive. The production quality is quite nice, and it has quite a good history. It's particularly interesting for myself because a lot of these obviously have Konami shooters have MSX versions, and it also covers, you know, things like Space Mambo that only came out on the MSX, and it's got, you know, probably a good well, 1/3 of the book is all on Konami's main shooter, which was of course the Gradius Nemesis series. So that includes Salamander, and then you've got Twin and then the Parodius series, and it's actually, you know, really well presented, very well written. So if you're a fan of shooters and you're a fan of Konami, it's very good. Does not have things like Contra and that in that though, so not run and gun shooters. It is purely, I suppose, scrolling shooters, I suppose the way to explain it. Really like that. It would actually be great if they came out with a run and gun shooter version or something like that to show the other Konami games, or you know, well, this is an independent release. This is not an official one by Konami, unofficial guide. But it'd be great to say get a Capcom one or something like that too. So, and I got that and I read it straight away. I really enjoyed that. So, some excellent pickups for the month. Alright, I thought I'd ask community questions because I haven't done many videos this month, so it does a little bit of a catch up. So the first one was by Soulfunk Retro, and what games made you go wow? So basically the idea of the question is, are there games in any particular area? I'm not sure how many I'm doing this bit off the cuff, how many games you want us to select. I've seen a few other videos by other people and they've done a number. So what I'll do is I'll start right back in retro times. Obviously one of the first systems that, I didn't know I had one. I went and played one at my friend's place and I had them in the store, was the Atari 2600. And that started out with things like Space Invaders and Asteroids, and even Adventure were, quite groundbreaking. But I suppose a wow game for that system was one of the first Activision ones. Now I almost picked Pitfall for this, but I decided I'll pick River Raid for this one. Either River Raid, and as you can see my copy's pretty daggy, or Pitfall are examples of games that totally delivered something that you were not expecting on the Atari 2600. Up to that stage, the games were not very colourful and were very blocky. Both River Raid and Pitfall deliver quite fine, a lot higher resolution looking games, a lot more colour, and arcade action. So it really wowed me at the time, and still one of my favourite games on the system. And flipping over to the system that came out at the same time was the Intellivision. So the first Intellivision games that came out were, they were interesting, but they were very blocky and simple. So you had Space Armada with, quite large aliens and everything like that. And I used to play that at our next door neighbour's house when I used to look after the kids there when doing babysitting. But then a little later in Intellivision's life, and this is once again another thing by Activision, and truly is my favourite game on the system in total, and I'm glad I've got a full copy of it now, and it's Beam Rider. Beam Rider on the Intellivision stands head and shoulders up against the versions on other systems, and it actually has really good sound too, and it plays really well, and it is probably the system that I have played Beam Rider on the most. So definitely a wow game for the system that you couldn't believe. Obviously, very close contender on that would have been Burger Time, which I did play back in the day. And once again, Intellivision never had one back in the day, just played one at the neighbour's house. So, flipping over to a system that I did have, but obviously came out a little later, I'll cross to the ColecoVision. So when the ColecoVision first came out, you had games like Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr., which were very, very impressive, and I really liked. But they were a little rushed. They were missing levels, and some design elements were skipped over in the rush to get those games out that came out with the console. Now, most of the games that I personally owned when I had the Coleco adapter for the Spectrum Video computer, I never actually owned a Coleco unit as is, were Parker Brothers games. Now, a bit of a fight between a couple of titles. Could have picked Tutankhamun, but at the end of the day, probably one of my favourite games on the system and the most close to an arcade game that I loved was Q*bert. And it really is one of the best examples of an almost arcade perfect experience on the ColecoVision. So a game that wowed me, and I'm very happy that I have a complete copy of that one. And I can, pop that into the Coleco console at any stage and have fun playing that one. So moving along to next generations, and then we go to the MSX machines, which of course I love. Now, so many games I could have chosen here, but I've gone right back to the early days. So we got the machines and we got a couple of games with it, and it was great, and they were better than the games I'd had for the original Spectrum Video before, because not much software came out for it. But one of the very, very first Konami cartridges that we got, and we didn't get these with the machines, it was probably a little while later, was Antarctic Adventure. So it was my first introduction to a Konami game. And the thing that I really like about this game is the really good use of colour, the little things like intermissions between stages, and the animated sequences and the sound effects and the music. It was all just a lovely polished game that anybody can play. It's great fun, and as always, stuck in memory as one of my, the very first games that really grabbed me. Sorry for the quick jump cut there, I got a visitor. So moving on to the next generation, and this is the game that probably links my nostalgia to the Sega Master System, because obviously I had the MSX machines. I knew the Sega Master System was based on a similar technology. It's the next evolution in the graphics chip. A bit of a hive off. MSX2 went one way, and Sega Master System is the is a chip based on the graphics chip in the MSX. And one of the very first games that we got in cartridge form, and really showed how colourful and how many objects it could have on the screen, and also shoot 'em up, was Fantasy Zone. Obviously the front cover doesn't do it justice there, but it's just the very fact of how colourful it was, and just showed the next evolution in games up from the straight 8-bit systems. And I suppose we'll go to the next generation here. No, I didn't grab anything from the Sega Mega Drive, because actually, truth be told, even though I had both, I had a Sega Mega Drive and a Super Nintendo. This is I'm going to do a Super Nintendo game because this is a game that sort of got me over to the Nintendo side, and later on, had me getting a Nintendo 64 and then a GameCube after that, and it was actually Donkey Kong Country. After this I went and got into the Star Wars games, but I had this before I had the Star Wars games, and it's just that extra effort that Rare went into the game to make the game a complete experience with all of the little actions of DK in this, and it's actually led Donkey Kong to be one of my favourite characters throughout Nintendo, more so than Mario. And as an example, Super Mario World, I had not actually played that at all up until about a week ago, so there you go. Alright, that's probably enough for what games made you go wow. I'm not going to go any newer in the generations, because I'll save a slightly newer one for games that grabbed me, from Darth Twinrova. Now, the idea of this particular tag is are games that you started playing, and then once you started playing, it really sucked you in, and you couldn't stop playing it. Now, I could have gone a little bit more modern and gone to the PC era, because there are some PC games that really did grab me, and we'll call them also RANs, but they're probably a bit modern for me. I like the older retro stuff. So, that would have been things like Diablo and StarCraft. I've put so many hours into those, not funny, and Icewind Dale and things like that. But slightly earlier than that, and the game that led into games like Icewind Dale and Diablo, and because I used to play Dungeons and Dragons a lot. We used to have a Dungeons and Dragons group. My wife used to play Dungeons and Dragons as well in the group. We used to always enjoy it, and this one is particularly good because my wife played it as well. I actually still have our original save discs for these, and it is Dungeon Master. Now, a game for the Atari ST was the machine we played it on. I could have held up Elite as well, but that sort of crossed two borders. I started playing Elite on the MSX, and then I got the Atari ST version and I played it again. I don't think it counts as the same thing, but Dungeon Master, we both played this, and we played it and played it and played it until we both finished it. And it really got me into RPGs, and that's what started me down the path of getting into a lot more RPGs once I got into the PC era. More and more, but my Atari ST was my PC before I got into real PCs. So in the IBM XT stage, I might have been programming for IBM XTs, but I didn't actually have one because they were too expensive. I had an Atari ST, and that was the game I played the most. And I still have the original copy. I really don't have much of my Atari ST stuff, but that's one of the ones that I managed to save away. So some really good questions there. There are some other questions out there that I'd like to answer, but it'll make this video too long. So they came out later in the month, so I'll do separate videos for those if I get time. Got Easter coming up and things like that, so that'll probably won't help. So next, moving right along, just a quick little update on my series. Yes, I haven't put out a Let's Make a Retro Game episode for a little while now. I apologise for that, but I am up to the stage where I need to convey concepts, and I'm still not happy with how I'm presenting them in the video I've put together so far. So I've done all the background work and written code and everything like that, but presenting it in a way to allow people to learn, I'm getting a bit fussy on that. Plus, it didn't help with all of the family calamities and not having enough time, so I've just gone behind. That's all I can say. So we'll set a date that's I can meet, which is probably about 2 weeks from now. Get another episode of Let's Make a Retro Game out, and by that stage I'll have a couple in the bank, so I can pump them out, say, every 2 weeks. I'll try and stick to a schedule of about every 2 weeks. Not going to promise anything. I have 4 daughters, busy job and everything like that, but that's what I'll try and do. Now, A to Z of my MSX collection, they're a lot easier because really I only have to hold up a game, talk about it, or sometimes a stack of games, and do a gameplay. And I do try and play a couple of them to make sure that I'm sure about what my favourite is. That series has been well received. We've just done K. Obviously the next one's going to be L, and that'll be in about a week's time. Now, a little update on Homebrew. Once again, seasons get shuffled about. It's basically based on mood, what I work on and things like that, but I'm actually really excited at the moment. I'm working on a new project for a new system. It'll benefit the Let's Make a Retro Game series, so I've switched my brain over to 6502, and I've been programming a NES game. Now, I'm not going to say what it is at the moment, but it's in collaboration with another group of people, and it's a different sort of game too, which is also interesting, if you know what I mean. So I'm really passionate about this, really enjoying it so far. I've already made some tools to help with my NES development, and working on the graphics and some of the routines. Really enjoying that so far, so hopefully we'll actually be able to show a little snippet of that by the next update video. So the end of March should be able to show some solid gameplay video of that and show you what the title's going to be. So that I'll leave it at that for the moment. So not to make this video too long, so I hope you've all had a good month retro collecting and gaming out there, and I'm looking forward to an excellent rest of the year. Easter's coming up, and I'm going to have a few days off and things like that with the family, but I do have coming up as well, sorry, I forgot about that. There will be some hardware pickups this month. Teaser photos will appear while I'm talking about this. I forgot I took pictures of them in preparation. So that's another thing that's coming up. So hopefully it'll be a good month for all. So I'm Electric Adventures. Thanks to all my subscribers. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.